Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about something you might encounter every day: sugar. Not the sweetness that brings instant joy, but its profound potential impact on the adolescent brain. It sounds a bit serious, but don't worry, we'll break it down in a relaxed way. After all, we all know too much sugar leads to a bigger waistline and weight gain. But could it leave a more lasting sweet imprint on the brain? For instance, affecting your memory, behavior patterns, and even concentration. This isn't just idle talk. Today's material comes from a study by Queensland University of Technology and the University of Queensland in Australia, and the findings are quite surprising. Simply put, this study tells us that excessive sugar intake during adolescence doesn't just cause the body to gain weight. It might also derail the brain's developmental trajectory, bringing hidden risks. Why is this topic so important, especially for teenagers and parents? Adolescence is the brain's golden construction period, where everything is rapidly developing, neural connections are strengthening, and the hippocampus is busy generating new cells. This is like the brain is building a skyscraper. The materials and craftsmanship determine how sturdy and flexible it will be. Today, our goal is to review this study together, to see how excessive sugar affects brain structure, behavior, and memory, and more crucially, what small changes we can make to avoid these potential pitfalls. Are you ready? Let's start from the beginning. How was this study designed? The researchers took a group of young rats, equivalent to human adolescents, that energetic age when the mind is racing. They designed 3 experimental groups, running for short weeks. The first group was the unrestricted group, where these rats could freely consume 25% sugar water, as much as they wanted. Well, 25% sugar water. That sweetness is more than double that of regular soda. Doesn't this sound like some scenarios in our real lives? For example, people drinking coffee, eating candy, and snacking constantly, with no limits, like an endless flow. The second group was the restricted group. They only had access to sugar water for 2 fixed hours a day, with total intake reduced by 75%. This is like setting a rule for yourself to only have a sweet treat during afternoon tea time and absolutely nothing else the rest of the day. And the third group, a pure control group, only provided with plain water to show us what normal looks like. Now, let's first look at weight changes, which is the most intuitive point of concern for everyone. The study found that the unrestricted group of rats gained an average of 6% in weight over 12 weeks. Moreover, this weight gain wasn't immediate. The difference only became particularly significant starting from the 4th or 5th week of the experiment. This shows that the effect of sugar is a gradual infiltration, accumulating slowly, like water dripping through a stone. In contrast, the restricted group, their weight generally didn't increase excessively and remained within the normal range. This directly proves one thing: significantly reducing sugar intake can effectively prevent the problem of weight gain. The World Health Organization consistently emphasizes that daily added sugar should ideally be controlled around 25 grams. About 6 teaspoons. This study is living scientific endorsement. Weight is just the surface phenomenon. What's more worth digging into are the internal brain and behavioral changes. These are the parts that truly send a shiver down your spine. Speaking of behavioral effects, this was one of the most significant findings in the study. The rats that drank sugar water without restriction showed a state of persistent hyperactivity. They constantly ran around their cages, covering much greater total distances and moving faster than the normal group. They simply couldn't sit still. Even more interestingly, even when they were no longer given sugar water in the later stages of the experiment, this agitated state persisted, still like this even after stopping the sugar. Yes, this indicates the effect is long-term and doesn't just disappear once the sugar is cut off. Does this sound a bit familiar? It somewhat resembles what we often call ADHD, some manifestations of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, inability to sit still, constant urge to move, energy levels that are excessive and hard to control. The researchers quantified this using classic behavioral tests, such as the open field test to measure activity, and in feeding tests, they found their impulse control was significantly weakened. They couldn't resist eating and lacked self-control. Of course, we must emphasize that this is only a similarity in behavioral patterns, not a direct assertion that consuming sugar causes ADHD. ADHD is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder with multiple causes, involving genetics, environment, and many other factors. This study did not provide causal evidence, but it does suggest that long-term excessive sugar intake might exacerbate symptoms similar to ADHD, especially in individuals with underlying predispositions. Imagine this: a high sugar diet contributes to obesity, and obesity itself is linked to ADHD, creating a negative cycle. Sugar makes you fat. Fat amplifies cognitive and behavioral problems, and then these problems in turn influence your food choices. For example, a greater tendency to eat high sugar foods for brief comfort and satisfaction. Sounds like a vicious cycle, right? Next, let's talk about memory, which is even more heartbreaking. Does too much sugar really make your memory worse? The answer is yes, and the study focused on a key area of the brain, the hippocampus. This is the filing cabinet responsible for learning and memory, crucial for our daily recollections and spatial navigation. The unrestricted group of rats performed poorly on two types of memory tests. The first was episodic memory, tested using the novel object recognition test. Normal rats would be super curious about a new object and spend more time exploring it. But these sugar rats, the difference in interest between the new and old objects was minimal, indicating their recognition ability had declined. They couldn't remember "I've seen this before," a bit like forgetting a new acquaintance you just met yesterday. The second type was spatial memory, tested with the water maze. The platform was hidden in a pool, and the rat needed to learn and remember the location to swim to it. The result: the sugar rats took much longer, frequently got lost, and their spatial memory was significantly weakened. This is like forgetting where you put things in your familiar home, or always taking the wrong way when leaving the house. Interestingly, their ability to learn itself wasn't greatly affected. They could still learn to swim to find the platform. The problem mainly lay in the consolidation and retrieval of memories. The information seemed not to be stored reliably, or even if stored, couldn't be accessed when needed. Behind this, what exactly is happening in the brain? This involves a deeper reason: neurogenesis. Imagine the brain as a construction site that never stops, where the hippocampus has a renovation team constantly generating new brain cells. These new brain cells are the foundation for the brain's plasticity, our superpower to adapt to the environment, learn new skills, and consolidate memories. It's like new workers constantly joining to keep the whole system vibrant and flexible. The study found that long-term, excessive sugar intake severely interfered with this process, especially in the early stages of neurogenesis. The number of neural stem cells, the seeds or raw materials for new cells, and neuronal progenitor cells, the apprentice stage, significantly decreased. The source was inhibited. Simply put, the factory producing new brain cells had its output sharply reduced. Like wanting to grow crops, but the seeds and seedlings are destroyed from the start. It's worth noting that this effect mainly targeted newly developing neurons. Those already mature and fully functional old cells didn't seem directly damaged. But this is still crucial because the continuous generation of new cells is the cornerstone of lifelong learning for the brain. If the output declines, in the long run, our ability to cope with new challenges and learn new things will weaken, especially during adolescence, when the brain isn't fully mature until the mid-20s. The nourishment during this phase, what you eat, profoundly shapes the brain's final form, potentially affecting the entire lifespan. Hearing all this, some listeners might start to feel a bit anxious. With so many negative effects, do we have to completely give up sugar? Don't panic. The real highlight of this study is the result from the restricted group. It's like a shot in the arm, giving us hope. Those rats that reduced their daily sugar intake by 75% had completely normal body weights with no excessive gain. In memory tests, their performance was as excellent as the control group. With stable hippocampal function, the neurogenesis process was also largely undisturbed, with new brain cells being produced as usual, and their impulse control, no issues there either. The only minor lingering effect was that they were slightly more active than the plain water group. But their cognitive functions, especially memory and learning, were perfectly intact. What does this tell us? As long as sugar intake is controlled within a moderate range, most negative effects can be avoided. You don't need to treat sugar like a monster to be avoided entirely. The restricted group in the study essentially brought intake down from an extremely high level to around the 1. It's recommended 25 grams. This is a huge difference compared to the actual average intake in countries like Australia, which often exceeds 100 grams. The key is frequency and quantity. Treat sugar as an occasional indulgence or celebration item, like a birthday cake, rather than a daily necessity snack. This way, you can protect the brain from long-term harm. Think about how much control this gives us, especially if you are in your teens or have children whose brains are in a critical shaping phase. Why is adolescence so critical? Because it's the stage for the brain's final large-scale optimization. The hippocampus is actively generating new neurons, and various neural pathways are being strengthened or pruned for fine-tuning. Providing the brain with good nourishment makes it more resilient. Conversely, bad habits can lead to problems that linger into adulthood. Based on the study's findings, long-term excessive sugar during this period may result in a persistent hyperactive state into adulthood, a decline in cognitive function, especially memory, reduced brain plasticity making it harder to learn new things, an increased risk of attention and behavior problems, as well as the various health hazards associated with obesity. It sounds like an all-around losing scenario. But remember, the key is excessive plus long-term. The restricted group clearly shows that moderate intake won't lead to these terrible consequences. The problem lies in treating high-sugar foods as daily staples, bombarding the brain day after day. Having understood this, the most important thing now is action. This study is not just a warning. It also provides very practical advice to help us manage our sugar intake. The first step is to understand the current situation. Try tracking what sugary items you consume for a week. The result might shock you, as a lot of sugar is hidden in things like ketchup, BBQ sauce, processed foods, and even some seemingly healthy low-fat yogurts contain quite a bit of sugar. Learn to read food labels. Turn to the ingredients list and the nutrition facts panel on the back, and check the amount of sugar under carbohydrates in grams. This is the starting point for developing a good habit. Second, make small changes that yield big results. Try substituting one sugary drink you usually have everyday soda, juice, sweetened coffee, or milk tea with plain water, seltzer, or unsweetened tea. Even replacing just one a day results in a significant reduction in sugar intake over time. Also, there's a world of difference between eating fruit and drinking juice. Try to choose whole fruit over juice whenever possible. Why? The fiber in whole fruit slows down sugar absorption, preventing sharp blood sugar spikes and crash. And it also provides fullness and extra vitamins and minerals. Juice, on the other hand, the fiber is mostly gone. Sugar is absorbed super fast, and it's easy to drink too much without realizing it. From a longer-term perspective, we need to redefine the role of sugar in our diet, view it as an occasional condiment or celebration item, not a core component. Just like eating cake for a birthday, not a slice every afternoon tea. At the same time, try to find ways to reward or comfort yourself that don't involve food. Listen to your favorite music, take a walk, chat with friends, do some craft, or read. These healthy coping mechanisms can help you resist the temptation of sugar. Third, don't neglect overall lifestyle habits. Ensure you drink enough water sometimes. When we are thirsty, our brain misinterprets it as a craving for sweets. Ensure you get enough sleep when you're tired. Your body craves high-energy foods, including sugar, even more, and engage in regular physical exercise, which not only burns calories, but also improves mood and brain function, helping to reduce reliance on and cravings for sugar in the long run. To turn knowledge into action, this material also includes a weekly challenge, which sounds quite interesting and very practical. Fourth, it is divided into 4 steps. Step 1. Honestly track and calculate approximately how many grams of added sugar you consume each day for the next few days. Use some apps or websites to help you record. First, figure out the current situation. Step 2. Identify your biggest source of sugars at beverages, snacks, or sauces in your main meals. Pinpoint the culprit. Step 3. For this biggest source, make one small, achievable change. For example, if it's mainly drinks, try to have one less bottle this week, or switch from a large bottle to a small one. Just a small step. The key is to start. Step 4. Notice how your body and feelings change after making the change. For instance, is your energy level better? Do you suffer less from the afternoon slump? Is your focus sharper? Is your mood more stable? Record these positive feedbacks. They will become your motivation. Well, let's summarize the core information we discussed today. Simply put, what you eat has a very long-term impact on your brain structure and function, especially during the critical developmental period of adolescence. Long-term excessive sugar intake can indeed damage memory, lead to hyperactivity-like behaviors, and inhibit the brain's ability to generate new cells. This is a powerful warning. But at the same time, this study conveys a message full of hope. Moderation is very effective. You don't need to treat sugar as an enemy to be completely banned, as long as you significantly reduce excessive intake, such as the 75% reduction in the study, bringing it back to a level closer to healthy recommendations. Most negative effects can likely be prevented. This shows that every one of us actually has the power to proactively protect our brain health and future cognitive potential through today's dietary choices. Small changes made today can bring huge positive benefits for long-term well-being. Finally, I want to leave you with a question for reflection. In our current societal environment, high-sugar foods and drinks are everywhere. Marketing is relentless, and temptations are numerous. In this context, how can we, as individuals and as a society, more consciously manage our sugar intake? This isn't just about controlling weight. On a deeper level, it's about protecting our ability to think, remember, and learn, as well as our long-term mental health and well-being. This might not just be an issue of individual willpower. It also involves how we collectively create an environment that better supports healthy choices. For example, better food labeling, less advertising bombardment, or community education. This is indeed something worth deep thought for everyone and for society. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this sharing has given you some insight, making you more alert and wise about sugar. This episode is brought to you by Vita Choice Limited, planned by Benny, and co-produced by Notebook LM, Claude, and Dawn. Our philosophy is charity not profit, science over suffering, wisdom for well-being. We look forward to exploring more mysteries of brain science with you next time. Goodbye.